We've got this fascinating stack of material in front of us, notes, reports, audio clips, all zeroing in on one single event.
Yeah, and it's not a political summit this time, is it?
No, not quite. We're diving deep into the women's Money in the Bank ladder match from June 7th, 2025. It's got its own kind of complexity, intensity, maybe even strategy.
Oh, definitely. Ladder matches are pure chaos, but there's method in the madness sometimes.
Exactly.
Right, because Money in the Bank, it's a huge deal. That briefcase offers a shortcut, a guaranteed title shot.
Yeah, a massive opportunity. And these sources give us a great look at the risks, the planning, the individual efforts that went into that match.
And this one had a specific dynamic highlighted in the notes, didn't it?
It did. A real mix, veterans, established names, clashing with some really exciting sort of up-and-coming stars, all trying to grab that one briefcase hanging up there.
That's a classic recipe for drama.
Uh,
Physical endurance, mental games, and just the sheer danger of the ladders themselves. It's a lot.
Absolutely. And looking at all this material together, we can hopefully get beyond just the highlights and understand the stories, the history, and what this result means going forward.
Let's do it.
Okay, so setting the scene. The sources confirm this match kicked off the Money in the Bank 2025 show, June 7th. And the commentary note suggests the energy was, well, electric right from the start.
Makes sense. Big match to open.
Ring announcer Alicia Taylor handled the intros, and we had the commentary team, Michael Cole, Pat McAfee, Wade Barrett, calling the action. Their insights are all over these notes.
Right, and they laid out the rules pretty clearly. The sources confirm what was announced. 6 competitors, no countouts, no disqualifications, so weapons, anything goes, basically.
And crucially, no pinfalls, no submissions.
The only way to win is to climb that ladder in the middle of the ring and physically grab the briefcase. Simple goal, incredibly difficult execution.
And the sources really hammer home what that briefcase represents. It's not just symbolic. There's a contract inside.
A contract for a guaranteed championship match. Anytime, any place, for up to a year.
It's framed consistently across the material as the ultimate shortcut, straight to a title match.
But there's a fascinating layer here, specifically for the women's division, that the sources highlight. This was, historically, the 10th women's Money in the Bank ladder match.
10, okay.
And here's the kicker, emphasized by an on-screen graphic mentioned in the reports. Before this match, every single woman who won that briefcase went on to successfully cash in and become champion. 100% success rate.
Wait, 100%. Every single one.
Every single one, according to the historical data presented.
Wow. Okay, that changes everything, doesn't it? That's not just a chance anymore. History says if you win this, you are becoming champion within the year.
Exactly. That statistic, cited right there in the sources, just adds this incredible weight, this pressure before the bell even rings. It turns the opportunity into, like, almost a prophecy.
You have to think that's playing on everyone's minds, the competitors, the commentators, everyone watching.
It absolutely has to. It makes winning not just a victory, but like signing your name on the future championship roll. That history definitely fueled the fire we saw.
Okay, so who are the 6 women stepping into this pressure cooker? The sources list them. Alexa Bliss, Roxanne Perez, Naomi, Stephanie Vaquer, Giulia, and Rhea Ripley.
And the dynamic between them was a big focus. Sources called it a mix of generations. You had the, quote, OGs, the veterans like Bliss, Naomi, and Ripley.
Right.
Against the, quote, young bucks, the newer faces, mostly from NXT, like Perez, Giulia, and Vaquer. So 3 experienced players versus 3 in their first ever Money in the Bank.
And even among the veterans, there was that surprising detail the sources picked up on. Rhea Ripley, dominant, former champion, huge star.
Yeah.
This was her first ladder match ever.
No kidding.
Yeah.
All her accomplishments, but never a ladder match.
Nope. First time. Which makes it even more interesting that she was still seen as a favorite.
Yeah, that says a lot about her presence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even without that specific experience.
Definitely. Okay, let's break down each competitor based on the details in these sources. Entrances, graphics, commentary points. First up, Alexa Bliss.
Okay, Bliss. The sources make a big deal about her history with this match. She won it in 2018.
Right.
And as Michael Cole pointed out on commentary, she cashed it in that same night on Nia Jax to win the title. So she knows exactly what this opportunity means and how to capitalize.
And this was her 4th time in this match. Plus, she's a 5-time world champion overall. She's got the credentials.
For sure. And her character, well, you can't ignore that. Cole's comment about the freaky old doll, Lily, was noted. It reminds you she brings this unique, unsettling vibe to the ring.
As another layer. Okay, next. Roxanne Perez, the prodigy.
Yeah, the prodigy. She qualified by beating Natalya and Becky Lynch in a triple threat, which is impressive in itself.
Definitely.
Commentary apparently spent a lot of time hyping her year. Her record run in the Royal Rumble over an hour and 7 minutes, wasn't it?
That's what the notes say, yeah. Over 1 hour, 7 minutes. Plus Elimination Chamber, then moving to Raw. A big year.
And Pat McAfee apparently really leaned into that prodigy nickname, mentioning she started training at 15 and describing her as damn near flawless in the ring.
High praise.
The sources also caught commentary suggesting a win here could change her family's life, even change wrestling itself, positioning her as a potential future cornerstone.
And her history with two others in the match, Giulia and Stephanie Vaquer, was brought up too. Coming up from NXT together, that brief tag team on Raw, trading the NXT title.
Adds a personal edge to the whole thing.
Exactly. Makes the interactions mean more.
Okay, Naomi. How'd she get in?
Naomi beat Jade Cargill and Nia Jax in her qualifying triple threat. Another tough field. And for her, this match had some history attached. It was her 5th Money in the Bank match.
Yeah, 5th appearance. Tied the record with Becky Lynch and Natalya for most appearances.
Okay.
But here's the key fact the sources stressed. She'd never won it before. 0 for 4 heading into this.
Interesting. All those chances never quite got there.
And the sources really focus on her current persona, describing her as a very different woman, someone to proceed with caution around. The commentary notes call her more cutthroat, more demented, more dangerous.
Her look reflected that too, right? The money bills, the caution tape on her gear.
Yeah, visually reinforcing the change. And her storyline motivations were key. The loss to Jade Cargill at WrestleMania was mentioned, plus that incident where she apparently threw Jade Cargill through a car windshield 6 months ago.
Whoa, okay.
So commentary framed this win as potential leverage over Jade. Plus, there was mention of a jilted lover dynamic with Bianca Belair adding more fuel.
So multiple angles driving her. Sources seemed high on this version of her character.
Very high. Called it her best character run, for sure, praising the excellent rebranded character. Seems like this darker edge was connecting.
Gotcha. Next, Stephanie Vaquer, La Promera.
Now, Vaquer's situation was pretty unique, maybe even concerning, according to the sources. This was her 3rd match in just 24 hours.
3rd match? How?
Tag win on SmackDown the night before, then another tag win earlier the same day at Worlds Collide with Lola Vice.
That's insane scheduling for any match, let alone a Money in the Bank ladder match.
Right. And like Ripley, this was her first ever WWE ladder match.
So inexperience in the stipulation and physically exhausted.
Exactly. Commentary based on the notes was really worried, calling it a suicide mission, saying she was severely sub 100% depleted.
But they still saw potential.
Oh, yeah. Despite the condition concerns, they also called her special, phenomenal, stupendous. The idea was maybe she's just that good she could overcome it. Her NXT history with Perez and Giulia, trading the title, was also part of her narrative.
And the sources noted she'd made a big splash since her call-up.
Yeah, described as maybe the hottest of the 3 call-ups, presented as a babyface, and tagged as a definite future world champion. Lots of expectation, despite the immediate physical challenge.
Okay, Giulia. The beautiful madness.
Giulia's ambitions were clearly stated in the sources. She wanted Money in the Bank, and she had her eye on the women's U.S. title, held by Zelina Vega.
She backed that up too, didn't she? Beat Vega the night before.
Yep, beat Vega, and someone commentary called a secret Irvis showed she was serious about collecting gold.
And her background.
Commentary highlighted her NXT run, former women's champion, Iron Survivor challenger, but also stressed her international experience, saying she made her name in Japan and calling her a global sensation.
How is her style described?
Very comfortable in between those rows, meeting the ladders, and her presentation as elegant but fierce. Nice contrast there.
And again, that NXT connection with Perez and Vaquer trading the title, the brief tag team with Roxanne, it links them all.
Absolutely. And like Vaquer and Perez, sources pegged her as a future world champion too. So another potential star looking for that breakout moment.
Finally, Rhea Ripley. Mami.
Yeah, Mami. Probably the biggest star power in the match. Widely seen as the favorite by commentary and sources, despite, as we said, it being her first ladder match ever.
Did the sources mention any nerves from her?
Actually, yeah. One note said she admitted to having butterflies earlier that day. Added a little bit of vulnerability to the dominant image.
How'd she qualify?
Beat Kairi Sane and Zoe Stark. Commentary noted Zoe Stark had an injured knee, which might have played a part.
And she had history in that building.
She did. Won a world title there back in January. So positive vibes in that arena for her. Her presence was described as just having this intimidating aura, creating a power disparity with the others.
Commentary seemed a bit conflicted on whether she needed the win.
Yeah, they kind of debated it. Like, she's Rhea Ripley. She can probably demand a title shot whenever she wants if she needs the briefcase. But they concluded it still fit her character, the dominance, taking any advantage. Pat McAfee apparently felt she'd mastered the ladder match dynamics quickly.
Any other history mentioned?
Just a brief reference to some past issues with Nia Jax.
Okay, so that's the lineup.
Yeah.
A really potent mix. Champions, rising stars, shared histories, physical question marks, historical weight, all colliding in a ladder match. Let's get into how the sources describe the chaos unfolding.
Well, right from the bell, that's exactly what you'd expect.
Chaos.
Chaos. Sources say the veterans, Naomi, Bliss, Ripley, went right after the younger competitors trying to clear the ring.
Really power move.
Yeah. And there was this specific spot noted early on. Naomi apparently launched Bliss towards Ripley.
Okay.
And Ripley caught Bliss and used her legs to dropkick a ladder into Naomi, like used her as a weapon. But then, right after, the sources highlighted this odd little moment. Bliss and Ripley shared a quick smile, like mutual respect or maybe amusement.
Huh. Interesting.
But it didn't last. Giulia and Perez jumped back in, broke up the love fest, as one source called it, back to business.
Ladders came into play quickly, I assume.
Instantly. Stephanie Vaquer brought the first one in, but Naomi, the veteran, made her pay for it immediately. Naomi was really aggressive early. Sources noted lots of kicks, using the ladder effectively, spinning back kick, baseball slide into the ladder, X-Factor onto the ladder, heat seeker onto a ladder in the corner, really showing that new edge.
What about the others early on?
Bliss was active too. Punches, knees, drop toe hold into the ladder, a sentence splash onto someone draped over it. Giulia drove Bliss into a ladder, used stomps and knees. Vaquer, despite the fatigue concerns, hit a springboard crossbody and showed off her kicks. And Ripley, well, her power made her an instant target for everyone.
Which leads into a major sequence, right? The Ripley burial.
Exactly. This was a big turning point, described vividly in the sources. Ripley tried to hit the razor's edge on Roxanne Perez near a ladder.
Bad place for that.
Very bad. Perez countered, turned Ripley's power against her into a Hurricane Rana.
Nice hammer.
That sent Ripley crashing backwards into the ladder. Huge impact.
And Perez followed up.
Oh, yeah. Hit a double springboard moonsault off the ropes onto Ripley, who is now stuck on that ladder. Just spectacular athleticism.
But that wasn't even the end of it.
Nope. Giulia then joined Perez. Temporary alliance, you know, against the biggest threat. They worked together to sandwich Ripley under a ladder. Commentary noted they actually struggled a bit with the ladder itself, which shows how awkward things can get.
Right, even simple things become hard in that environment.
But they managed it, and then they piled more ladders on top of Ripley outside the ring, just buried her under steel.
How long was she out?
Commentary estimated around 7 minutes and 37 seconds, a significant chunk of the match. Pat McAfee called her eventual return the Undertaker gift. It was clearly a strategy by the others, especially Perez and Giulia, to neutralize Ripley.
Smart play. Meanwhile, what about Vaquer, the one running on fumes?
Incredibly impressive, despite the narrative of exhaustion. The sources detail her hitting a dragon screw on Naomi's knee, trying to weaken her. Landed a crisp, snap vertical suplex. And at one point, she tried climbing the main ladder with Giulia literally on her back, trying to pull her down.
Wow, that's strength.
Yeah, commentary apparently debated her power versus her depletion during that com. It was a great visual of her fighting spirit.
And she had a huge spot involving Ripley, too.
Massive spot. Drew a huge reaction, sources say. Ripley was on a ladder bridge in the corner. Vaquer countered whatever Ripley was attempting and hit her finisher, the Devil's Kiss, onto Ripley on the bridge.
Ouch. On the ladder bridge.
Yeah. Wade Barrett apparently yelled it was the most popular move in WWE right then. Huge pop from the crowd. Commentary even speculated it could be a death blow to Ripley in the match. Really sold Vaquer's impact.
Then there was another big complex spot involving multiple people and ladders.
Yes, the double bridge spot. Sources describe how they set up 2 ladder bridges, one on each side of the main ladder. Kind of parallel bridges.
Okay, setting the stage for something big.
And they delivered stereo high spots. Roxanne Perez hit her Pop Rocks finisher on Stephanie Vaquer, who was on one bridge.
Simultaneously?
Almost exactly. On the other bridge, Alexa Bliss hit her Code Red move on Naomi. Commentary called it dueling code reds or pop rocks. Pat McAfee apparently yelled, "Let the bodies hit the floor," as they crashed onto the steel.
That sounds incredible but dangerous.
Totally. Sources called it amazing and scary and gave double respect to Naomi and Vaquer for taking those bumps onto the ladders. A real highlight reel moment.
Now, Perez and Giulia, they worked together to bury Ripley, but that alliance didn't last.
Not at all. Their rivalry kicked back in hard. Sources describe them battling at the top of the main ladder later on, trading punches, haymakers, hair pulling. Giulia slammed Perez's head on the ladder rungs, hit her with a headbutt.
Oof.
Brutal. Commentary noted how fitting it felt that it might come down to just those two, given their history.
But the veterans started coming back into it? Oh.
Yep. Ripley finally emerged from the ladder pile after that 7 minutes, 37 seconds, apparently, or right after Perez and Giulia for payback. Alexa Bliss recovered too. There was a sequence noted where Ripley hit the riptide on Giulia, and around the same time, Bliss hit Sister Abigail on Perez. Took out the two newcomers who'd been central to the action.
Clearing the field, which led to
A final confrontation everyone expected, maybe. Bliss and Ripley, steering each other down after taking out the others. They both started climbing the main ladder, opposite sides. Looked like the final battle for the briefcase.
But there was a twist.
A huge twist. Coming from someone who'd been maybe a bit overlooked at that exact moment, Naomi. She'd taken that dragon screw to the knee earlier. One source noted she was recovering alone in the ring for a bit.
Right.
She re-entered the picture. But instead of trying to climb with them, she went to the base of the ladder Bliss and Ripley were on.
Oh, no.
And just tipped the whole thing over.
Sending them crashing.
Crashing down onto that horizontal ladder braid, still set up in the corner. A massively decisive, ruthless move. Took out both main threats in one go.
Wow. Smart. Brutal, but smart.
And with Bliss and Ripley down, the pass was clear. Sources describe Naomi climbing the ladder alone, the crowd buzzing, and her reaching up and unclipping the briefcase.
That was it.
That was it. Official time noted, 25 minutes and 10 seconds. Your winner, Naomi.
25 minutes and 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Incredible sequence of events. So we've covered the what and the how. Let's get into the analysis, the implications, the so what. How did the sources view this match overall?
It's interesting. There wasn't total consensus. Some sources were glowing, calling it excellent, even an all-timer for women's Money in the Bank. They felt everyone came out looking better, the design was smart, the spots were memorable.
High praise, but not universal.
No. Others were more critical, especially of the first half, calling it mostly bored or maybe a bit awkward. They usually agreed it picked up significantly in the second half, though. One summed it up as solid if unspectacular.
So a bit divisive, maybe depended on who you wanted to win.
One source explicitly suggested that. Your personal investment could definitely color your perception of the match quality, which makes sense.
But what about individual performances? Did sources agree there?
Mostly, yeah. The consensus was that everybody had time to shine. Naomi, obviously, as the winner. But Vaquer got huge praise for her performance, despite the fatigue. Giulia and Roxanne Perez were seen as really stepping up and looking strong.
Elevated the newcomers.
Definitely. Sources use that word elevation, especially for the NXT call-ups. And Ripley and Bliss, their star power was still evident, even though they didn't win. Everyone seemed to gain something.
But the main focus of the analysis was Naomi's win, right? Why did sources feel it was the right call?
It really tied back to her character transformation. All that talk about her being the best character run, a different cat, ruthless. The win felt like validation for that shift.
So the briefcase empowers that character.
Exactly. Sources explained it gives her instant credibility, an added element. It's that shortcut we talked about. But more than that, it gives her leverage and power, especially in her ongoing story with Jade Cargill.
Right. It changes her position entirely. She's not just reacting anymore. She holds a major card.
Precisely. She goes from maybe being defined by past losses or issues to being a central figure who could dictate what happens next.
And the sources explored those future possibilities, particularly with Jade.
Oh yeah, big time. The win puts Naomi on an even playing field with really anybody, sources said. The Jade dynamic is the most obvious. Will Jade win a title before Naomi cashes in? Or will Naomi wait until Jade is champion and then strike?
Creates instant drama.
Tons of it. And with Jade in the Queen of the Ring tournament too, Naomi's win puts their story into the forefront of the division. Speculation ran towards a potential SummerSlam clash or cash-in involving Jade. Maybe even Bianca Belair gets pulled back in.
And the briefcase lets Naomi lean into the new character more.
Sources suggested exactly that.
Yeah.
It lets her flex this character, use the threat of the cash-in to be even more menacing and unpredictable.
And we have to come back to that statistic, the 100% success rate for women cashing in. That has to factor into the analysis.
Absolutely critical context. The sources stressed it. It makes Naomi's win feel less like just an opportunity and more like an inevitability based on history. It massively boosts the perceived impact she's going to have.
Okay, let's take a look at what Dave Meltzer had to say about this match.
Yeah, it's Dave Meltzer's review, just his take on the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. So let's start with the rating he gave it. You probably saw it.
Yeah, 3.5 stars, right?
3.5 stars.
Okay, so solid, pretty good, but not like an all-timer in his book.
Right. Leave some room.
So what did work for him? According to this review, what were the highlights that pushed it towards that score?
Well, he points straight to the crowd. It says the biggest pop, the loudest reaction came when Stephanie Vaquer and Rhea Ripley were facing off.
Ah, okay, so their interactions really connected. That makes sense. Crowd energy is key.
Totally. It shows what's landing live.
Were there, like, specific moves or sequences he called out?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Ripley's dropkick on Giulia, got to mention, seemed like a strong spot.
Okay.
But the real standout, according to the review, was Vaquer's move, the Devil's Kiss.
Oh, yeah. Where did that happen?
To Ripley, while they were both on the ladder bridge.
Wow, okay. That's a tricky spot.
For sure. And Meltzer specifically wrote that that moment got over big with the audience, hitting something complex like that up high in a bridge.
Yeah, that adds danger, drama. I can see why that would pop the crowd.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was a definite positive noted.
Okay, so we have these impactful spots, strong crowd connection for certain pairings. Those are the pluses.
Right.
But it's a ladder match. They can get a bit messy. What were the criticisms? What did this review say dragged it down a bit?
Well, he mentioned, and I quote, lots of the usual climbing and being taken down.
Ah, the standard ladder match formula. The repetition.
Exactly, that sort of fundamental structure. And critically, he felt the match lost momentum late.
Okay, how so?
He specifically pointed out there was a lot of climbing towards the end, suggesting maybe it got a bit tedious, less inventive as it went on.
Right, just trading climbs without big saves or spots can feel like it's stalling. I get that.
Yeah, kind of spinning wheels, maybe.
Now, you mentioned Stephanie Vaquer. There was another interesting detail in the review about her day, wasn't there?
Yes, yeah. This is pretty specific. The review highlighted she'd actually wrestled earlier that same day.
On a different show?
Yeah, on the AAA Worlds Collide show.
Wow, okay. Double duty. That sounds pretty demanding on the surface.
It does, but the review adds some important context.
What's that?
Meltzer noted she only wrestled for about, 2 minutes in a tag match earlier.
Oh, only 2 minutes.
Yeah. And the implication there is key. The commentary team might hype up wrestling twice in one day as this huge feat.
Right, build the narrative.
Exactly. But Meltzer's pointing out the actual physical toll was probably minimal. It kind of scrutinizes that narrative, suggests maybe it wasn't the big endurance test it might sound like when evaluating this performance.
That's fascinating. It's like peeling back the curtain a bit, looking past the hype to the actual, workload.
Precisely. It shows how this review looked at the context, not just the story being told.
Okay, before we wrap the analysis, any other factual tidbits the sources included? Sponsors, attendees?
Yeah, a few quick mentions. Sponsors like Wheatley American Vodka, WWE Slam by Tops, Papa John's Cricket were noted as being featured.
Standard stuff. What about attendees?
Interestingly, they showed several wrestlers in the crowd who had been part of the Worlds Collide event earlier that day. Figures like El Hijo del Vikingo, Mr. Iguana,
With his plush iguana?
Dr. Wagner Jr., Psycho Clown, and Conan, who'd done commentary for Worlds Collide, just connecting the two events.
Unusual promotions?
Yep, Riyadh season, SummerSlam dates, and ticket info for the show in New Jersey. Standard broadcast elements captured.
Okay, so summarizing the narrative strengths here, the veterans versus newcomers setup worked well. The temporary alliances added layers. You had big memorable spots like the Devil's Kiss and the Double Bridge.
Right.
And crucially, the outcome with Naomi winning sets up compelling future stories, especially with Jade Cargill.
Couldn't have said it better. It hit a lot of the right notes for a match like this.
All right, that was a really detailed look at one specific match, pulling from all angles in these sources.